Where's Mrs. Thomas? Mr. Cooper.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna start.
Meeting of the Cave Creek Unified School District. Today is Monday, February 24th, and it is 6 p.m. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Item 1.3, roll call. All members of the board are present, and all members of the administration are present. Mr. Dolezal, Dr. Pletnick, Dr. Hendrickson, and Dr. Jensen. Item 1.4, formal adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item 2.1, our call to the public.
President Greer, we're just waiting for the list to come down. So
Okay.
we'll wait for that and then we'll get started with the call to the public.
Okay. Our first speaker is Beck. Go ahead. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Back here. All right. I apologize. For item 2.1, we do have an admonition that needs to be read. According to ARS 38-431.01H, governing board members may not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during an open call to the public. The only allowable responses a governing board member may make are: 1, a board member may respond if there is a direct criticism of the board member. 2, a board member may direct staff to look into a matter. Or 3, a board member can ask to have this item placed on a future agenda. Speakers need to be mindful of what they say when presenting to the board. Inappropriate comments could be considered slanderous. Okay, now our first speaker is Becky Gilligan, and she will have 8 minutes.
Hello? Can you hear me?
I can.
You can?
We can, they can.
Go ahead.
How about now?
Yep.
Okay. Is it working?
Yeah.
We good?
No.
You want me to talk really loud?
You want to try that one, if you wouldn't mind?
Oh, of course. Can you hear me now? Hello. Ben Petra couldn't be here tonight, and he has spoken at every other meeting, so he asked me to relay you this. I want them to know we don't trust them anymore. They have no integrity and are not taking the responsibility to make decisions for us and stick with them. If they had voted to close Lone Mountain to begin with, fine, we understand. We don't like it, but we understand. Now when they change votes with no new info makes me question their integrity, so we are now looking out of district. Now I'll begin my speech. I understand that we cannot keep 5 schools open at around half capacity. If the data clearly supported that closing Lone Mountain was what was best for this district, I would be sad, but truly understand. That is not what the research presented shows. There are questions that are still not answered, and this leads parents to wonder, what is your hidden agenda? There's an elephant in the room, and we'd like to know what it is. Why are we having a revote with no new information? From the beginning, I have done everything I can to help my daughters with this transition. I have 2 girls who go to Lone Mountain. We drove past every school, picked out things we liked about them, and even went to get donuts after, trying to encourage them. When I told my daughter that you voted to keep it open, she was shocked and cried and was thrilled. But when I had to look at her and say, we're re-voting, she cried and wanted to know why. I couldn't even spin this for her credit. I would love to, but I cannot. I had to tell her that we are now looking out of district as well. We are not looking out of district because you're closing our school, but because of the lack of transparency, the refusal to address issues such as our administration size, refusal to do more research to ensure you are making the best decision, and the little respect you have now shown to teachers and families with the way this is being handled. I have other reasons I will list here as well. With no new information or facts to support a revote, it sounds like the board is being bullied. We do not support bullies. If the board is being bullied or there are bullies in the highest level of the district, how can that be tolerated and how can we know our schools are safe? The numbers presented reflecting how much money is expected to be saved by closing Lone Mountain are inconsistent between meetings. We've asked why. Maybe you have new information, but we have been met with silence. This is increasing our distrust of you. A cabinet member has been seen touring out of district schools for their own children. If our own cabinet does not want to send their children to this district, that is a huge red flag for us parents. The high school being pitted against Lone Mountain is a new political low. I have spoken with members of the focus group who feel that they were led to the recommendation of closing Lone Mountain, again creating more distrust among us. Also, they only had 4 sessions, and although I appreciate their hard work, there are many questions left unanswered, and we have brilliant members of this community asking the right questions that need to be answered before we close another school. When I called the PV district to inquire, they said they are overwhelmed with calls from our district, which really makes me sad. They said that it sounds like we're gonna lose a lot more than 15% that was originally estimated. This will cause even more financial difficulty for our district. When talking to other parents, they are saying that they are leaving not because this school is being closed, or their school is being closed, but because they believe this district is going under due to poor management and the board refusing to right the ship of administration, leaving the children to suffer. Most parents I've spoken to are saying that if we have to move schools now, we might as well just move districts because this district is declining, which again, makes me so sad. We want to believe we want to stay, but by doing this revote, with no new information, you're giving us more reason to leave. How teachers are being treated in this district does not align in my values and is one of my #1 reasons for wanting to leave. How can the teachers not all be given an equal opportunity for jobs with the schools closing? I believe it says CCUSD at the top of their contracts, and we have discussed this at previous meetings. How can we expect our wonderful teachers to stay when we are already underpaying them, and we know that a possible 1% pay raise if they get a new position equals about a trip to the grocery store? I know we need to pass an override or a bond to support our teachers' pay, but the community does not trust the admin and the board. My neighbor is a current teacher in the PV district who graduated from Cactus Shadows. She will not teach or send her children to this district. She says that the district uses the money for administration and not for teachers and students. People are posting on local Facebook groups saying that they won't vote to pay for more taxes because they don't believe the money will go to the teachers and the students. If we do not change the viewpoint that the community has, our district will fail. Another reason we're looking at a district is that we have more admin than other districts, much larger than us, yet this cabinet solution is to close schools with no phase 2 plan. If CCUSD is going to survive, we need to right-size this administration. Despite all of this, I have deeply loved our district since my children started. The dedicated and amazing teachers and staff make me feel safe dropping my children off. And we know schools aren't as safe as they were when we went to elementary. I want to stay and support our community, but now that I've been made aware of these other issues, it is very difficult. Putting these teachers and kids through this again is wrong. Stand by your previous vote. The reasons you voted not to close Lone Mountain still exist. Do not bow to bullies. Do what is right, take the time for a transparent study. Fix the district at the admin level, not by hurting our children and teachers, so that families like us can have the hope that this district is somewhere that we can be safe and proud to stay.
Our next speaker is Maddox Simmons, and Maddox will have 3 minutes.
Hello. I'm Maddox Simmons. I'm a freshman at Cactus Shadows High School, and I'm speaking today to encourage CCUSD to allocate funds and resources to programs throughout the school district, such as IB, rather than directing those funds towards a school operating at a deficit. Now, one of the reasons I want this is for IB. I would love to go to an out-of-state college, probably, and the best way I can do that is having a really good record with IB. And it's also one of the best things that separate us from other school districts. And this is awesome for us. Now, another thing is the arts. We have all of the drama programs, the plays, all of just everything there. And it is one of the biggest parts of CCUSD. My brother, he graduated from Cactus Shadows High School. He is at Barrett and he is doing amazing. He's gonna be an accountant. And this is because of the IB program. If you don't close Lone Mountain, I might not be able to do this because I'm a freshman. So when I get there, it might be gone. And I need IB. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chrissy Shirk, and Chrissy will have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Chrissy Shirk. I am a parent of 2 children currently enrolled at Lone Mountain Elementary School. I have a soon-to-be middle schooler, so I speak to you as a parent who is concerned with the well-being of the entire district, not just a single school. 2 weeks ago, I left the board meeting filled with hope for this district. I was inspired by the comments that several of you on the board made regarding capitalizing on community involvement. I was one of those parents that was ready to knock on doors and work together to try to pass upon an override. Less than 3 days later, when it was announced that the decision to keep Lone Mountain open was being reconsidered, I seriously had to question my loyalty to this district. This was such a hurtful blow to the people who had waited months for this decision. Our teachers were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief, and as a parent, I was able to tell my kids that they could stay at their school with the friends and teachers that they had grown to love. I cannot express how completely cruel it was to give our community this hope and then take it away. Regardless of what is presented tonight, we all know that no new facts came to light in that short period of time. The optics on this are that the board is allowing one of its members to change a vote on a matter that had already been decided based solely on pressure and backlash from the public, and that is completely unacceptable. What message does this send to our children and to parents who might be considering this district? Allowing this to happen completely undermines the integrity of the school board and will push away the same community that 2 weeks ago was so eager to help. Regardless of your opinion on this closure, I urge you to uphold the integrity of this board and not allow this reconsideration to take place. My family has some difficult decisions moving forward, but I can assure you if we choose to leave this district, it will not be because you closed our school. It will be because you lost our trust. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Susheta Sean, and she will have 2 minutes.
Good evening, CCS. Can you hear me? Members. I am the current co-president of Cactus Shadows High School PTO. I'm also the vice chair on CCUEF. I have not attended the board meetings about closing the elementary schools since my youngest is in high school, and I felt the parents more directly affected should speak. But once I heard there was a potential programs cut to Cactus Shadows if 2 elementary schools did not close, I had to get involved. Unfortunately, one more school needs to be voted to be closed. I wanted to also mention other potential cost-saving areas. Were the facilities of the district office, administrative positions, and salaries considered? What about school buses? What percentage of our students actually ride the school buses? Transportation is not required by law. For example, a public school district in California, Davis Joint Unified School District, has no buses for K through 12 for at least the past 18 years. They chose to allocate these funds to the extras. It is one of the top districts in Sacramento metro area and has over 8,500 students now. I only bring this up so other areas of potential cuts that should be evaluated to improve CCUSD's outlook. The one item I'm 1,000% sure of is no cuts to any program to be made at Cactus Shadows. We have already lost some dual enrollment, AP classes, CTE, and more. A high school with many opportunities will draw families to the district and retain them. We continually lose students to other high schools because there is never a guarantee of what classes, programs will be available at Cactus Shadows. High school is a culmination of many students' education or the starting point to succeed in college. Whatever your decision is, Cactus Shadows programs must be protected, expanded, and prioritized to keep this district competitive. I will pull my son out if any of his opportunities, are limited further. Sadly, leave this district after being an enrolled parent for 16 years and a resident for 24 years. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Katie Burrell, and Katie will have 2 minutes.
Hello, President Greer, Board, and Cabinet. I stand today in support of the Lone Mountain Elementary community. Please reconsider this revote. See how the district handles the closing of one school. You've done better than just about any board in the last 5 years that I've seen in starting to ask questions. You should be celebrated for that and not bullied. As stakeholders, we are all deserving of those answers. And yes, our kids will be fine because of the marvelous teachers at Lone Mountain who make them fine every day. And as a parent, I will make my child fine no matter where we land. I, like all of you, will ensure that community. But these teachers are deserving far better than how they've been treated recently. I've got another minute, so I'm gonna read a part of the email that I sent all of you today. I'm sorry, I don't like public speaking. So yes, we will move my child to a school that focuses on dyslexia. The why isn't because our school was just closed. The why is so much more about how this cabinet views special education. To you, my child is a burden. My child doesn't help raise test scores. My child uses resources. Yes, he does. And you get money for that. You get a lot of money for that. And there's so much more that I could say about special education. I've heard this loud and clear over the last year, ever since the new cabinet's taken over. It was strikingly clear this weekend when the apology for the post about open houses was sent out. You care more about attracting kids from outside of the district than inside the district because they don't require special education. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Zach McQueen, and Zach will have 1 minute.
Gotta be short this time. Good evening. To the board, you asked for facts, we brought them. You asked for solutions, we delivered those too. Our only request was transparency, a complete picture, and open dialogue with the community. Yet time and time again, your cabinet had shifted the goalposts, making it impossible for the public to engage in a fair and informed discussion. If you truly believe the option presented is the only option, then you have done a great disservice to the very community that elected you. You are not voting on a budget line item, you are making a decision that will uproot students, disrupt families, and reshape our district for years. To the cabinet, the damage done in just a few short months is greater than anything this district has seen in decades. Instead of learning from past mistakes, you have doubled down on them, combining the failure of Desert Arroyo with the hasty, short-sighted elimination of the Mandarin program. You have not built trust, you've shattered it. But you haven't broken the spirit of Lone Mountain. To the teachers, staff, and families in Lone Mountain, hold your head high. You've been a blessing to our children, an example of resilience and integrity in the face of adversity. To the board, this is your moment to do what is right, not what is easy. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lisa Kai, and Lisa will have 3 minutes. We can. They can.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, oh, that's too loud, okay. Anyways, I want to talk briefly about 3 things. You've already heard them mentioned here tonight, but I want to talk about trust, transparency, and accountability. At the end of the last board meeting, each board member clearly stated why they were either voting for or against the closure of Lone Mountain. It came down to the numbers, and it didn't make sense to close Lone Mountain with too much risk and no clear plan in place. Then a few short days later, we were notified that there would be a revote. No new information had come in the meantime, with all of us feeling effects of heavy criticism from my high schoolers at the high school to the community members, people talking about fear and rumors of budget cuts. We knew it was just that. They were fear and rumors, no facts. It did not change the fact that closing down one of the newest, largest schools in the district is not the answer to our district's problems. In fact, it could be the district's most costly decision yet, if made. Where is the transparency and trust the community has asked for? It seems there has been little talk or care about how we are planning on retaining our current students and tenure staff. The families and staff at Lone Mountain have been made to feel that they are just a small number, and the district is fine if they leave. This is not a unified community, and I have been in this district for over 30 years. I've never seen it this divided before. And as our elected board members, I urge you to represent our community and lead by example. Do things the right way. Involve your community members and experts to help the district, because once you close a school, you cannot reopen it. People will leave and it will never be the same.
Our next speaker is Becky Curtin, and Becky will have 2 minutes.
Hello, I've worked for Cave Creek for 8 years as a school counselor, and both of my kids went to school here. While my home school has always been Black Mountain, I've worked at every school in the district as a counselor at one time or another in those 8 years. I know each school has its own unique personality and culture, which makes them shine in their own way. And what all the schools have in common in our district are amazing students, staff, and parents. And that's what makes our community and district unique as a whole. And that is where our focus should be, on what is best for our entire district. The vote is not about saving a school, it's about saving our district. It's about doing what is best for all children in our district. If Lone Mountain remains open, there will be no support staff in any elementary school in Cave Creek. That means no counselors, no intervention specialists, and no aides. No one helping students navigate their personal and academic challenges. Social and emotional support and school counseling play a crucial role in helping elementary students develop healthy coping skills and build positive relationships. By providing emotional guidance, counselors help students manage stress, anxiety, and conflicts, where there's a lot of that in our elementary schools. Early interventions foster emotional resiliency, which is which can positively impact academic performance and overall well-being now and in the future. Closing Lone Mountain is not just about saving money. It's about ensuring that every student continues to receive the support, guidance, and education they deserve. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Shiloh McNeil, and Shiloh will have 4 minutes.
Why are we here? The community was informed that basically it was too late to look at Desert Willow as an option to pursue for closure because the bureaucratic restraints of having to wait 10 days to hold a forum and then another 10 days to have a meeting for voting. Well, assuming that January 9th, when the forum was held at Lone Mountain, where I know this was proposed, was the first time you heard about the myriad of reasons Desert Willow is a more viable option for closure, it has been 46 days. We could have had 2 forums, 2 meetings, 2 votes to close Desert Willow. So I ask, why hasn't this happened? Why hasn't the process even been started so at the very least it could be a discussion as an alternate option? Why are you so hell-bent on closing Lone Mountain? What's in it for you? Because I know there isn't anything in it for the students and the teachers who are being displaced, or for the parents who, after telling their kids that their school is safe after the vote on February 11th, now we have to go back to them and tell them that the district, who is supposed to be putting students first per your mission statement, is re-voting to close it. And all because of the members of this board decided that time management isn't a thing. You couldn't figure out in 46 days this other option. You couldn't even ponder it. Budget isn't a thing. You are looking at closing one of, if not the most profitable elementary school in the district to keep a financial burden open. And empathy isn't a thing. You posted on social media about elementary school open houses and deliberately left Lone Mountain out of it, as if this vote had already been decided. How cruel are you? I get that Cave Creek School District has a serious financial issue, and I get that drastic measures need to be taken to remedy this issue. But is closing a profitable school that can house its current student population and Desert Willows the right answer? Is filling kids with hope and comfort that they will return to their school next year and then proposing to vote again and strip it all away the right answer? And why? Because someone didn't get their way, or someone in your pockets? Desert Willow is not able to house the entirety of the Lone Mountain School body, nor is it even scheduled to take on any new students next year if Lone Mountain closes. How exactly does that benefit the bottom line? Where is the transparency? What are you not telling us? Why do you want to close Lone Mountain specifically so badly? The public demands to know.
Our next speaker is Jesse Spencer, and Jesse will have 4 minutes.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Dolezal, cabinet, and fellow community members. My name is Jesse Spencer, and I'm a proud parent of a 10th grader and an 8th grader here in CCUSD. Both have been in this district since pre-K, and I'll be damned if I don't see them both graduate as Falcons. These past few weeks have been exhausting, and that's as a passionate, invested member of this community. So I can only imagine what weight you have all felt on your shoulders. No one wanted to be in this position. No one wanted to be here. No one wanted to have this fight. But here we are, and tonight you have a choice to make. Never in a million years did I think I would be standing here advocating for the closure of a public school, let alone 2, but here we are. It's no secret where I stand, and I won't apologize that I've been vocal about it these past few weeks. Along the way, some have dismissed the voices of those advocating for this difficult but necessary decision, writing us off as just some PTO moms. But let's be honest, PTO moms have been the lifeblood of this district for years. We don't just plan classroom parties or carnivals. We fundraise, we organize, we support teachers every day, and we fight for our schools. And we will always show up when the future of CCUSD is on the line. But I know that passion alone won't keep CCUSD strong. Tough decisions must be made, and when emotions run high, and I am the chair of CCUEF, as well as multiple parent groups in this district, I know that there is one guiding question that should always lead the way. Does this decision do the most good for the greatest number of kids? Not just some kids, not just kids at one school, all kids. The right decision, the only decision that will allow us to begin healing as a community, is to close Lone Mountain Elementary and Desert Sun Academy. Anything less only prolongs the uncertainty, deepens the division, and weakens the programs that make CCUSD the exceptional district that it is. Without this action, the financial burden will be spread across the entirety of the district, forcing cuts that will directly impact our students, especially at the middle and high school levels, where strong academic and extracurricular programs are essentially vital. Many have asked how many will leave the district if Lone Mountain closes. There will probably be a few, maybe more than a few. But the real question we need to be asking is how many will leave if it doesn't? How many families will walk away because they no longer feel the district is sustainable, or that their children's futures are being compromised by a decision that kicks the can further down the road? I respect that this board has taken the time to reconsider. True leadership isn't about standing firm just for the sake of it. It's about stepping back, reevaluating, and doing what's right for students. That takes courage, and I commend you all for that. But now it's time to act. No more waiting, no more postponing the inevitable. Your own words in the governing board norms and commitments were adopted on September 16th, 2024, and they state, quote, "We will keep students at the forefront of decision-making." Not parents, not politics, students. Tonight, I urge you to honor that commitment, make the hard choice, do the most good for the most number of kids. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Scott Brown, and Scott will have 1 minute.
Why are we here tonight? 2 weeks ago, the board made their decision and they voted. Maybe the board wasn't ready for their vote. Members Walker, Fortney, and Moore all commented that they'd asked for more information from the cabinet. None of this information they had before the last board meeting. Why? Is this incompetence or insubordination? How do we expect the board to make good decisions if they can't have all the information? 2 weeks ago during the vote, Member Fortney asked the audience who would help knock on doors. Several hands went up. At the end of the evening, many parents, students, and staff walked out of the boardroom with hope. So again, why are we here tonight? Is the reason we're here because a cabinet member, after the meeting 2 weeks ago, she was overheard saying, "That doesn't matter, Lone Mountain will close next year." Remember, the elected governing board members are tasked in making decisions and setting policy for the district, not the cabinet. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jamie Hickson, and Jamie will have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I stand before you today not just as a concerned parent of 2 elementary-age children, one that happens to be neurodivergent and receives services, but as someone who deeply values the quality of education for all of the students in our district. I understand budget decisions are never easy. I urge you to consider the long-term consequences of keeping another school open when the financial reality simply does not support it. First and foremost, maintaining a school under these strained circumstances will result in larger class sizes across the district. We know that smaller class sizes allow teachers to provide more individualized attention, better classroom management, and ultimately stronger academic outcomes and relationships with the kids. By stretching our resources even thinner than they already are, we risk compromising the very foundation of our children's education. We must acknowledge that special programs will have to be reduced or eliminated to compensate for the budget shortfall. Programs like art, music, STEM, counselors, gifted education, and interventional services are not just extras. They are essential components of a well-rounded education. These cuts will impact every single student across the entire district at every level of school. It will affect every child's opportunity to explore and develop their full potential, especially those with special needs and challenges like my son. These programs are such an important and necessary part of his school day. So to be clear, the school that we all know and currently love, all of our schools are going to look extremely different next year. The most important parts of what we love won't be there potentially. We also have to be honest about the future. Delaying the school closure is merely putting it off for the inevitable. We can either make a responsible decision now with a strategic, well-planned transition, our kids are resilient, or we can find ourselves in another crisis later, forced in a last-minute decision of unorganized closure that will create even further disruption for students, teachers, and families. Most importantly, this is not just about one school. This decision impacts every student in our district. If we continue to stretch our limited budget, we're making sacrifices that will harm all of our students. Instead of focusing on keeping one building open, we should be prioritizing how to maintain the highest quality of education across all of our schools. I know it's an emotional and difficult decision, but it's our responsibility to make choices that are sustainable and beneficial for every student in our district. I ask you to take a hard look at the facts and choose a path that ensures that every child continues to receive the quality education they deserve now and in the years to come. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Danielle Samardzic. Sorry. You have 1 minute.
Good evening, board members, administrators, and fellow parents. My name is Danielle Samadjic, and I speak tonight as a concerned parent who values quality education for all students. Budget decisions are difficult, but keeping a school open when finances don't support it has long-term consequences. Without a plan in place, one can assume this decision could lead to larger class sizes, reducing individualized attention and impacting academic outcomes. It could also affect special programs like art, music, gifted education, and intervention services, affecting students district-wide. These programs are essential, not extras, and what makes CCUSD so great. Delaying closure only postpones the inevitable. A well-planned transition now is far better than a last-minute crisis later. This decision isn't about one school, it affects the entire district. Stretching our budget too thin will harm all students. While I know this is a difficult decision, my hope is that we choose a sustainable path.
Danielle, your time is up. I'm
sorry.
Our next speaker is Jessica Fitzwater, and Jessica will have 1 minute.
Hi, I'm here to speak for our PALS community. I'm concerned about what happens after tonight's decisions. Our kids deserve stability and consistency. We need it to succeed in our program. Our PALS community wants to go to horseshoe trails. We don't get the option of open enrollment like the rest of our students. We don't get to choose which of our schools is the best for our kids. Having two special needs programs at one school would be detrimental to our kids. It's not the same as having multiple programs at a middle school and high school levels for special needs. Cutting our ESS teachers would be detrimental to our program's ability to thrive and succeed. Please make the right decision tonight and do a revote. Thank you.
Zach, you have 3 more minutes. It wasn't on our list, so if you'd like to come down, now's your time.
Okay. Well, what else can I say? I went through my speech, right? I guess let's do some history on some slides here just to level set. So back on December 3rd, it was quoted that if we do nothing, we are still positive $69,961.02. That is at the elementary school level. These numbers also do not include the B-weight students, our PALS community, which we have a dozen, and that funding is what, $35,000 a student? There's more profit, or there's more positive on the bottom line in that regard. Okay, then if we lose 1% of our students, we are negative $45,987.70. That was on December 3rd. Then we go to February 11th. If we do nothing, we'll be 2.696 budget shortfall. How do we go from 69,000 in the positive to 2.6 million in the negative? Also, on December 10th, Dr. Plechnik went over numbers for each campus when it comes to the elementary school, and this is M&O expenditures to the weighted ADM. DSA, negative $644,000. Desert Willow, negative $6,700. Black Mountain, positive $115K. Lone Mountain, positive $200,000. Horseshoe Trails, positive $400,000. Snoring Trails, positive $848,000. Cactus Shadows, positive $2.4 million. So I ask you, did you really get the full picture on the budget? Okay, when you call the Auditor General, they also make comments on, we're only looking at the M&O budget and not the full picture. Again, why are we not looking at the full picture? When you call the School Facilities Division and speak to David, our liaison, he says the worst thing you can do is close the school. That's the first thing he will say. And there's been multiple people in this room that have called and had a conversation with him. Have you had a conversation with David? So I guess my point is, and I've said this from the very beginning, is what's the full picture? You keep moving the goalposts. Okay, in January I challenged the fact and gave you a solution to reduce your 9 director levels to manager level roles. It would save the district $200,000. The next meeting, the comment was, if you don't close schools, we're gonna cut programs at the high school and junior high. Look what's happened. The division is here now. That wasn't part of the discussion in December or January. It just came up recently, a couple weeks ago. Back to my point, the level of division that has come from this is beyond anything that we've seen in this district. Do not reconsider this vote.
Our next speaker is Laura Smith, and Laura will have 2 minutes.
Public speaking is not my deal either, so I'm going to read. Good evening, everyone. I'm here to urge you to vote against the motion to reconsider tonight. 2 weeks ago, those who voted against the closure did so thoughtfully and with intent, explaining their reasoning. The 2 who voted for the closure admitted that they were uncertain until the very last minute. I'm sure the chaotic meeting environment we experienced that night helped to tip the scales. To preserve the board's integrity, the current vote must stand. Allowing mob rule to sway decisions undermines the process, turning it into a charade manipulated by the administration. They misled the public with misinformation, causing unnecessary panic about program cuts at the high school, which was later stepped back by the high school. Pulling programs was never a part of the proposal, not until the admin was worried that the Lone Mountain closure wasn't going to go their way. Since then, we as the Lone Mountain community have been absolutely vilified, on social media, in person, all the places. It has been brutal. It's become like we're wearing a scarlet letter. My worry now is that if we stay in district, will my kids be treated differently because they're from Lone Mountain? We've already heard of this happening at the high school because of their Lone Mountain affiliation. If you allow this revote, the administration will be shown to hold the power, making a mockery of the board's role. We are here tonight because the administration didn't get its way. As one cabinet member said after the first vote, "Don't worry, we'll just close Lone Mountain next year." I guess a year was too long to wait. Please uphold the board's integrity and let the vote stand. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Carrie McCullough, and Carrie will have 4 minutes.
Good evening, members of the governing board, cabinet, staff, and community. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Carrie McCullough, and I've been a part of this community for over 20 years as a parent, educator, and believer. I've always been proud to call Cave Creek home, but now I'm uncertain if I can say that with the same conviction. First, I want to thank the governing board for their dedication. Despite the challenges of incomplete and inconsistent information with tight timelines, they have worked tirelessly to do what they believe is best for our community based on their research. I also want to recognize the staff of DSA and Lone Mountain who's faced unfair treatment by administration and colleagues, but have remained professional and put students' needs first during this challenging time. So thank you. I apologize to Desert Willow for being dragged into this due to data inconsistencies. I know Desert Willow is too a very special place. Lastly, I do want to recognize the cabinet for their time and efforts. They already do have full-time jobs, and this is also added to their plates. With that said, I'm deeply disappointed by the behavior I've witnessed in our district and community. This is not about school closures, it's about basic human decency. One major cause of division is the absence of a clear long-term plan. There continues to be unanswered questions leading to inconsistent numbers. We are divided into two groups. One side wants to slow down and create a comprehensive plan that will help the district long-term, while the other wants immediate action to prevent further losses. Both sides have very valid points. No one has a crystal ball, but it's disheartening to see people unwilling to consider the different perspectives. The administration's use of fear only deepened this divide. Even with the highest projected savings and closing 2 schools, the district will only have $1,200 left, and that's excluding salary raises and additional enrollment losses. According to weighted ADMs, the district loses about $5,000 for every student that leaves, and this loss is reoccurring every year with the students, siblings, and neighbors who follow. I believe the actions from many of our district's community members and cabinet have contributed to driving away the savings from at least one school closure, if not both. Add in the yearly loss of enrollment during transitions from the middle to the high school, and we are likely to be in the negative. I can't really give a definite answer because the projected savings range from $768,000 presented in December to 2.3 to 2.6, or even 2.8 million, depending on the presentation. We don't need to agree on everything, but the way people are responding is disheartening. Meanwhile, surrounding districts and charters are planning to recruit our students. There are no winners here. Moving forward, I hope the committees are formed without predetermined outcomes, and that all perspectives, even the harshest critics, are genuinely heard. We need to focus on both revenues and deficits. Most importantly, I hope we remember what brought us all here in the first place, a community of empathy, support, and compassion. Simple and free things, like inviting Desert Sun and Lone Mountain staff to the upcoming open houses, could have begun to support transitions and unite our community. But sadly, what we've seen instead is animosity. I am heartbroken at what has transpired. This isn't about removing limbs. None of our 7 schools are diseased. Rather, this is about going in for a comprehensive physical and finding a healthy lifestyle. I sincerely hope that this isn't the end of what have always been my Cave Creek family. It's time for us to come together and find real solutions. We all are better than this.
Our next speaker is Marla Riney, and Marla will have 1 minute.
Good evening, I'm Marla Riney and I'm a proud parent of a DSA French immersion 5th grader. And like many in my community, my family has already felt the impact of cabinet suggested and board approved decisions. Although very hard, I know we as a district must make change to support all children. With that being said, I'm here tonight to express my gratitude to the cabinet and board for making a sincere effort to listen to input from all sides and asking difficult questions throughout a very challenging process. As a community, we don't always take the time to acknowledge the difficult work being done, and I want to recognize that tonight. To those in the room, no matter the final decision, I highly encourage you not to give up the fight for public education in Cave Creek. Please follow Action for Students on Facebook and Instagram. We are the PAC committed to supporting the district in future bonds and override efforts, which are going to be crucial no matter what. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Karen McMahon, and Karen will have 2 minutes.
Hello. I'm here to express my support for the Cactus Shadows International Baccalaureate program. Someone else here mentioned it earlier, a student. My daughter is a freshman this year. We technically live in the Deer Valley School District boundaries, but we chose the Cave Creek District years ago primarily because of the Spanish immersion, fine arts, and IB offerings we thought would be available to her in high school. I know how valuable and enriching the IB program is for students. My own sister was one of the original IB participants when the program began at North Canyon High School back in the 1990s. She thrived in IB and it prepared her for an elite college and for life as a confident, successful adult. The camaraderie shared amongst the IB students and the teachers who are invested in their success and the academic environment that pushes students to excel is exactly what our daughter is looking for. She loves school, she loves her teachers and the extracurriculars. Her friends and classmates work cooperatively and competitively to push one another to achieve the high standards set by their teachers. This is why we chose Cactus Shadows. This is why we chose Cave Creek instead of Deer Valley. My daughter loves being a Falcon, and it would break her heart to have to change schools at this point. But like most parents, we seek the best possibilities and options for our child, and we hope those opportunities will continue to be available. I understand that difficult financial decisions have to be made. Please remember that those years between freshman and senior years, when decisions are made and habits are formed, are critical in affecting our children's futures. I can honestly say that years ago, we would not have chosen this district if we had thought those opportunities would not be available in high school. I sincerely hope that we can retain her at Cactus Shadows. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Luke Kotzman, and Luke will have 1 minute.
Good evening. Thank you, board, cabinet, district staff, for all you do for our community. What you're reconsidering this evening is a serious matter and one that has been given the attention it deserves. Qualified and caring staff, as well as an ad hoc committee, have examined the financial health and future of the district, recommending the closure of 2 schools. You know of my connection to this community and my frustration with not approving the recommendations earlier this month. It is imperative that the district send a clear message to its families and employees that tough decisions will be met with rational and practical solutions. Solutions that may be met with resistance. However, in this case, the solutions serve to position the district for recovery and long-term success. Please follow the recommendations provided by the experts serving on the Facilities Committee and Cabinet and and supported by your administrators, teachers, and families, which will benefit all of CCUSD students. And with my last couple of seconds, I want to encourage everyone to attend Grease this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. This set is behind you. It's a wonderful show. Hope to see you there.
Our next speaker is Mark Warren, and Mark will have 2 minutes. 2.
Board, cabinet, when I left this board in 18, I didn't think I'd be coming back. My kids have all graduated, and it was time for me to move on and let a new generation step up. I've sat back and I've watched your meetings since December. I've visited with some of you and I've expressed my love and concern for what you're going through, because I was on the last board that had to close a school in this district. And the division it caused, and contrary to rumors, there was not a dictatorship. It was sound financial decisions. It saved us $1 million a year on staffing, and it saved us multi-million dollars on having to repair a facility that was desperately needed of it when the SFB, as it was called back then, wasn't providing districts anything. I've spoken to some experts regarding this, and some of the people that were actually involved when we built most of these schools. If you look around, you might see my name on 1 or 2 of them. When this district was thriving, I was just looking at the old numbers. At our peaks, we were at about 5,900, and right now we're 4,200. You have a difficult decision. Unfortunately, it got drug out for another meeting. My opinion, it should have been made at the previous meeting because the numbers were in front of you. If you're looking at 2.8 million right now, before you have a budget from a state, that they're the cause of this fiasco, not the board, not the district, not the leadership, for severely underfunding education. If any of you remember Prop 123, Janet and I were 2 of the 5 reasons why that went to the ballot, because we sued the state. So we do have a little background there. It's sad, it's unfortunate. I trust the teachers and the leaders of these schools that no matter where they're educated, they will get a quality education in Cave Creek. And unfortunately, you've got to close Lone Mountain at this point, but what's best for all of your 4,200 students is what's important. And I pray for you to make the right decision, and I pray for you because I know how many sleepless nights we had the last time we did this.
Our next speaker is Katie Boss, and Katie will have 4 minutes.
Hello, that's a tough one to follow. Good evening. Thank you for reopening this important topic. I don't have much to say except to share that I was disappointed to hear that at the last vote at the board meeting, it was not voted in favor of the full recommendation of the facilities group. I don't speak on behalf of anyone but myself, but having served on that group, we looked at every possible scenario that would leave the district in the best case with the difficult financial decision that we find ourselves in. This situation is sparse. Representatives of all aspects of our district were present, and while we had some good discussion and didn't always agree during our sessions, we unanimously agreed that the proposed scenario was the best for the district moving forward. As governing board, part of your responsibility is to support fiscal decisions while doing what's best for the students and staff for our entire district. By not voting yes on the entire proposal, you're not being fiscally responsible and not putting all students and staff first. This decision will likely lead to higher class sizes, no special classes or specialized programs, no pay increase for our staff, and many other cuts to our programs in our district. It will leave us with a large deficit still. While I wish this vote to close 2 schools was reached at the last meeting, it wasn't. So tonight I ask you please reconsider and vote on the entire proposal, including the closure of both Lone Mountain and Desert Sun, given from the committee that worked tirelessly for hours and months to sort through the full picture of all of the information and data provided to us to make the best decision for our district and our entire community. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Casey Ballard, and Casey will have 1 minute.
name's Casey. This is my first time public speaking. I have 2 kids that go to Lone Mountain. My understanding is that there hasn't been a forensic audit done at all, or at least none has been publicly made. I don't know why that hasn't been brought to the forefront. If you're gonna do cuts, why don't you trim the fat and start at the top down? Anyone making double what a teacher makes should have their salaries cut, starting with the superintendent all the way down to the bottom. At that point, you would probably have tremendous savings there first, and then going from there to each school and evaluating. I have so much to say, and your money just didn't add up when you're shutting down the schools. The savings wasn't there. It just doesn't add up. Your math is not mathing. So I don't know where you're getting these numbers from. And you're going to continue to close schools down regardless because of the poor management of the people.
Thank
here.
you. Our next speaker is James Kai, and James will have 12 minutes.
I don't think I'll use the whole time just for your guys' enjoyment, so. Cabinet, I'll speak in here. Cabinet, President Greer, Vice President Ulmer, board members, thank you so much for the time. Sorry you have to hear from me again. And Cabinet, thanks for the work that you put into this. So I'm gonna back up just a little bit because I've had an opportunity to speak multiple times in the past. So Mr. McQueen went through some of the history of it on our meetings that we had had. On 12/3, we started with the initial meeting at $760,000 of savings. 12/11, that $760,000 of savings, no rifts, natural attrition was the plan, kind of that was laid out. 1819, we had multiple meetings with DSA and LMES, and then a fine arts meeting here as well, the public forum. The focus group, those numbers grew to 43 positions, and then $2 million, I think it was $2.6 million, as Zach was saying, on our losses. On 2/3, the concept of threat of programs and closures to all school was implemented. And all of a sudden, there was a divide that came out through this whole process. If that was the case, I would have, and I've said this before, it would have been great to have had the opportunity to really have a full chance to discuss it, to talk through it together, to looking at what the programs would be. And at the meeting on 12/11, at that point, when the vote was in, there was certain questions asked about, well, what programs are we shutting down? What's the cost for this? And those hadn't been indicated or really specified. So I think that's why there's these questions that keep coming up with what's going on. There's been a long process. It's been over 3 months. Although I love, coming up and speaking, I get tired of hearing my own voice that same way as well. But this is the community, right, that we're coming together to be able to do it. Through that process, I've had opportunities to speak to legislative representatives. That's head of the House Education Committee. Spoke with the SFB board, the Auditor's General Office. I was with them for 2 hours today, just talking through that as well. The City of Phoenix Parks and Rec Department, neighbors, lobbyists, teachers, administrators, board members, brokers as far as repurposing, and as well as the Arizona Tax Authority. So really trying to come together, because at our meeting when we had come out, it was told, hey, this is an emotional decision, we understand. Let's not go with it with emotion, let's move it forward with data. And that was what we really were trying to do, and coming forward with the data of where we're going. On the history and background, there's never been, I think, a perspective of us wanting the school of Lone Mountain picking on Desert Willow Elementary School. It was an opportunity to be able to say, hey, let's look at multiple scenarios and options to find out what the best situation is. So for the families, and I get it, it's been said on social media, it's been said out there, LMES is being selfish, LMES is being not doing the good for the district. But as a school, when really the only alternative that's presented is your closure, as well as another one, and not multiple scenarios to be able to work through it, it makes it very difficult when you know that there's scenarios of why the school should be open. Even, get it, at the loss of the fact that that could help our budget. But jumping from that, I don't think it's just an expense issue, and I've talked about this before, and my little graph here, which doesn't do much, I don't have the larger format, but the concept of this graph is we are losing enrollment. So of the 3 categories that we had with the Auditor General's office, when I spoke to them today, the major issue that they said is our change in weighted student count. It's continuing to drop. So that weighted student count, looking at it, those numbers, so from 21 to 22 was 0.85%, 22 to 23 was 6.95%, which is 391 students. 23 to 24 was 5.84%, 306 students. 24 to 25 was 9.41%, 464 students. The reason I bring that up is it correlates with what we talk about at M&O budget or an RCL, so which is our revenue control limit budget. In 22, our budget was $30,869,000, 23, $32 million, 24, $30,600,000, 2025 projected at $28,788,000, 26, $26,780,000. And if you follow the same trend, which we don't have those budgets, at a 10% loss, we would be at $24,638,000. The next budget is $22,420,000. So yes, we're talking about a savings for a school right now, but what happens after, if we don't change the loss of enrollment, if we don't add a bond or an override or being able to stabilize that, we're on a downward trajectory. And that's been kind of the conversation and discussion that's a little different than just cutting the schools. And that's the question, is the plan for doing that? When do we stabilize? What's the projections for that? I understand it's a really scary time. And I know that a lot of people in this room have spent lots and lots of time and effort, and I wasn't part of that, to try to pass overrides and try to pass bonds. And it's probably easier for me to come and say, hey, this is the idea, to try to do that. But the scary part is, as a community and needing to come together, is because of our enrollment losses as we're dropping, we're going to continue to do that. So then it is another school. But at what point does that stabilize? I had a conversation, was asked by somebody to have some conversations with companies that handle bonds and had worked. So I spoke with a group that has worked with a school district that's also been difficult, and they passed an override this last time. The reason we had suggested this possibilities of not being on a election cycle override, so the numbers are here. In 2021, the election cycle was really close. 51.77% was a no vote on this is on the bond, versus a 48.23% was on the yes side. And that was equivalent to about 700 votes. On a full general election cycle, the votes in the 22 election, which was the bond and the override, it was a much wider loss. So 58% was no, and a 41% was yes. So that's why I've said in multiple meetings, it's critical to be able to have those things, because it's the rising tide, or the tide, as a state, they had mentioned typically from a political standpoint, in a general cycle, it'll vote more right, which is not going to help education. So that was the reason of looking at the override at this point in time. So with all that being said, what's the plan to stabilize? I know it's just a scary situation. I know that's not 100% in that realm. But right now, by having additional people within the school, slowing the process down, trying to work together, figuring out what it is if there are cuts, because a lot of those have been rumors. I was hoping to see some of those, I think, tonight, or in the board book that came through, but I didn't see those come through. But the fear is what's driving a lot of the things that we're doing right now. And so my request, and I've tried through this whole process to be very optimistic, collaborative in that regards, is to look for solutions, look outside of just cutting, because as we cut, we're going to continue to cut ourselves, and we're hurting ourselves because we're all divided right now. Versus if we are working together for an override and looking at doing that, that's a focus outward and being able to be solution oriented in that as well. And there's probably a lot of other people that are much smarter than me in this room that have other solutions. And I know Member Moore was looking at different community group and board meetings to be able to have that come together and an opportunity to do that. So my ask right now would be to not approve the vote for reconsideration this time, continue to stick with the vote that was had, and get an opportunity to come together and work through this process. So I thank you so much, and I know it's been a long process for all of us through this period of time, and I appreciate the time and effort that everyone's put into it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jamie Friedman, and Jamie will have 4 minutes.
Okay, first of all, thank you. Good evening to the cabinet, to the members, to the president, to everybody that's here. First of all, I also just want to say there are a lot of heroes in this room tonight. And the heroes that are here are the parents that care about these kids, the volunteers, the true volunteers that have put hours of their time, unpaid, to try and figure out the best solution here. So I want to thank you. There are tons of heroes. Parents, students, there's kids here, there's also teachers. And I think at some point, we need to acknowledge these heroes in the room, and we acknowledge what is going on and how we're gonna come back together to figure this out. And I think one of the things that we've heard over and over again, maybe that there's these rumors that class sizes are gonna get bigger, or some of our programs are gonna close. And I wanna say, these aren't rumors. My third period has 39 students in it, 39. I was in a full-on panic today because all year, they've never all shown up. And guess what happened today? 39 of them showed up, and guess how many books I have? Now, mind you, these are donated books. These aren't the curriculum. I have 38 books for 39 students. Okay, and these are 18-year-olds, I have the football players, all the big guys. And I didn't have enough books, and I was in a full-on panic, and thank God someone got called to the office and we made it. But there are 38 kids in my class, okay? And the other thing about this is we know that the arts and the drama class and the music class, and I had a speech, but I'm not gonna do it, that they do save lives. And you know how I know this? Because 147 seniors write about it all the time. They talk about how playing soccer saved their life, how this one drama class, how being in robotics, they found a teacher that somehow understood them, okay? I had a student that said, I'm so depressed, but thank God for band. Thank God I found my people there. And that is the thing that I think as a community, if we lose that today, that's what's gonna be really hard for us. And it's not just gonna be hard for us, it's gonna be hard for all of those students. And I wanna thank you for the people that are reconsidering and the people that are here and all the people and the heroes in this room. But I also wanna acknowledge that the teachers signed a letter saying, there is a path forward and we need to move for all of the kids. And I think almost every school has someone represented in that. The teacher's voice also matters. And I think at some point as stakeholders this year, and there have been a lot of meetings, so many meetings, right? And also the heroes that stayed for 5 hours last time. But there's been all these meetings that we've done, and at some point I do think the teacher's voice has been a little lost, okay? And I say that because we voted on some big things. We are losing teachers and administrators, really good ones already, to the 4-day work week. We know we're gonna lose people if we don't do the right thing for this district, and I think today we have to make that vote to figure out what is the right thing for all of our students. We have to save lives, we have to acknowledge the heroes, and there's no winning and losing tonight. There's definitely not that, right? Because we are all in a crap position. And so what there is, though, is a path to move forward. And yes, I think there are gonna be parents that leave. Either way, we can't predict that. No matter what we do, someone's gonna leave because someone's upset and all those things. But we have to rebuild. And if that means closing the schools and coming together and being smaller, so be it. We have A+ schools. We have A+ schools out there. And those teachers are part of that reason. And today, maybe we acknowledge that. And today we say 38 in a class, by God, is too many. It is too many. And so we're just gonna have that if we don't do the right thing fiscally, and if we don't put more of those kids together. We have to pull the resources, we have to do the right thing. So thank you to the heroes. It's all of you. And I hope whatever happens today, that we all end up in a much better place. So thank you.
public comments. Item 3.1, discussion and possible action to reconsider the board's February 11, 2025 decision to not close Lone Mountain Elementary School effective July 1st, 2025, and not to approve related boundary changes for the 2025-26 school year presented by Member Walker.
I bring forth a motion to reconsider the recent decision regarding CCUSD school closures. I'm doing so for these reasons. In response to constituents who, following the board vote, raised additional questions about the $1.8 million discrepancy between two sets of fiscal data presented to the board and larger community on the savings to the district of closing both schools. The board did not receive information regarding the $2.6 million savings until Monday, February 10th. This left very little time for consideration and questions before the meeting on February 11th. 2, in response to a high school letter sent to families following the board vote about the status of cutting funds for student programming. This letter was inconsistent with the administration's communication to the board about the availability of cash to cover current shortfalls. 3, in response to new information I received from district administration following the board vote and at my request. I asked for information about the district's ability to liquidate unoccupied property holdings and learned about the need to go to public vote to do so. Notably, I and several board members requested information about the status of these properties prior to the vote. The administration did not fulfill these requests as deed information had not been received prior to the vote on February 11th, 2025. As an elected and volunteer board member, my ultimate intention is to protect the interest of all students. I extend my apologies to the community for the confusion, heartbreak, and concern the situation has caused, including my request to reopen a decision that was voted upon in weeks past. Unfortunately, almost all public school districts are facing similar issues as federal and state funding models continue to leave public school districts with less and require more of districts to fund necessary operations through bonds and overrides. I understand that as a representative of the community, I'm expected to make informed decisions in the best interest of all of our students and whole community. As I have received more information and heard from more constituents, I believe that my request will better position me, as well as the rest of the board, to make a decision based on the most complete and accurate information available. To this end, I requested the following materials in advance for tonight's meeting. 1, cabinet plans on how to cover the $1.8 million deficit. We did get these details, and it affects every student in CCUSD. 2, a review of the programs that are under threat. 3, property holding information, which includes deed details and restrictions. 4, review of process to liquidate properties, such as lease laws versus selling. I move to approve the closure of Lone Mountain Elementary School effective July 1, 2025, pursuant to its authority under ARS 15-341-32, and to approve boundary changes as presented pursuant to its authority under ARS 15-341-37 as follows. Consolidate Lone Mountain Elementary School with Black Mountain Elementary School effective for the 25-26 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, there's lots of things. I got lots to say here. I think it's pretty important, so I'm gonna try and, I wrote them all out because I don't wanna miss anything. So bear with me. I recently heard the comment that there was no right decision here, and I very much disagree with that. The statement, there was no good decision, and there certainly wasn't an easy decision, but based on all the information, there was, in my mind, only one decision that could be made. Only one decision that adheres to the norm number one this board came up with. It will keep students, all students, at the forefront of decision making. Because of that, the only decision I saw was to close both schools. But for myriad reasons, the board discounted the recommendation of the people who have lived the work of education every day for their entire careers. I'd like to read just a little passage of a voicemail we got, because I think it kind of speaks to it very well. It says, listening to passionate voices outside the field isn't a bad thing. But when those voices start carrying more weight than the trained experts, we are no longer building something structurally sound. The board was trying to listen to those parents who decided to stand up when it mattered for their kids. However, they are listening to those voices instead of the voices of those who have always stood up for kids because it has always mattered to them. So here we are again. And I've heard you guys, I've heard it again and again, and I get it. But my question to the people wanting to keep Lone Mountain open is really this. What kind of school would you rather have your kids attend? Do you want to keep them at Lone Mountain at all costs? The board has been privy to the potential cuts that closing one school would necessitate. It's massive. It's all-encompassing. And would leave very little left of what a comprehensive education would look like. So would you rather leave them there because it's Lone Mountain, or would you be willing to realize the situation and then send your kid to an incredible school with one of the best principals ever, with everything still in place and dance and theater? A school that is ready to welcome your child with open arms and an understanding of the magnitude of this change. That really seems to be the choice. I read this one email parents sent me about they were going to enroll their child into the kindergarten program there to be an Eaglet, but now they were pretty upset. And so, I put to you, would you rather have your child be an Eaglet in a bare bones class with who knows how many, maybe 40 other Eaglets, and what kind of specials, fewer supports, fewer services, or would you be willing to have them be a thriving Bobcat in an exciting new school where they have all those things in place? And here's the thing that we need to consider, and it's been mentioned here. By choosing to keep Lone Mountain open, the board has ensured that every single student in our district will now feel the impact of that decision and the budgets that it would entail, the budget cuts. That's why I voted yes on February 11th to closing Lone Mountain and Desert Sun, because I have to consider all 3,835 students in the Cave Creek School District. Now, as getting onto new information, I don't think this is exactly new information, but I wanted to bring something out here that was kind of new to me. Since that 3-2 vote, I've had a chance to talk to several of the members of the facilities focus group. These conversations have been very eye-opening to me, and so I thought I'd take a moment to share my new information. As we know, it was made up of 8 community members / parents, 6 teachers, and 8 administrators. The administrators were special ed, human resources, transportation, finance, district office, facilities, and 2 school principals. They were tasked with the daunting task of what to do about closing these schools. And we know how the committees work. They do the research, they make their decision, they bring the decision to the board. They don't bring all their work to the board. Why should they? They did the work for us. They were not asked to bring every single nuance of their work to the board. Now, it's been said over and over and over and over that closing Lone Mountain and Desert Sun was predetermined right from the start. It's been said that not all the data, not all the information was provided. Calls of lack of transparency have been ringing out loud and long, and they're still doing it tonight, and going all the way back to December. So this is what I just found out recently, and I kind of wish I would have found it out sooner. I wish it had been made a little bit more public. The members of the facilities focus group were all presented with all of this data from the very start for all of the schools. And then they were split into groups, several groups. They all went off their own way with their own data, with all the data, to figure out what they would do. And back then, right at the beginning of it, they weren't even tasked with the names. It was school A, B, C, D, E. Every single group, every one, including the ones with representatives from Lone Mountain and Desert Sun, came back to the whole group with the exact same recommendation. of those two schools that were finally presented to us on December 3rd. Every one of those groups. So if that part of the process had been made out there public right from the start, maybe it would have stopped some of this talk about why wasn't Lone Mountain considered. It was. It was always going to be Lone Mountain. No, it wasn't. Other options were considered. Yes, they were, by the whole group, individually, collectively, in the groups, and as a whole. So I just wanted to make sure that that was out there. Maybe it paints a little bit clearer picture, maybe it doesn't. Will this change somebody's mind? I don't know. But I think the facilities focus group has been unnecessarily beaten up here. The implication that the work hasn't been done or wasn't done properly is seriously detrimental to our district. They did their job. They did it well, with honesty and with their eyes on that North Star that they were asked to do right from the very start. So, finally, a lot of emails were suggesting that reconsidering this vote will, and I heard it here again tonight, undermine the integrity of the board, or that credibility will be or has already been lost. Several of them have asked, again, I heard it again tonight, what are you teaching our students? What are you teaching our children? Well, I hope what this situation teaches our children is this. Sometimes it is extremely difficult to make the right decision in situations of high pressure and stress, especially when there is no good or easy decision. But when your heart and your mind and your conscience and your sense of duty tells you that you made the wrong decision, you own it. You accept the responsibility and you immediately take the proper steps to rectify the situation. Despite the consequences, despite the potential outrage, despite the threats that you succumb to bullying or some higher pressure, that's called having moral integrity. And I think, in my opinion, that's a pretty good lesson to teach our children. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I guess I have more of a question. As we sit here tonight, new information, which is roughly $1.9 million cuts, affecting right down to the student teachers. My question to the cabinet is this. The cabinet I got the lucky microphone. So my question really comes down to this. Many are here tonight because of the cabinet and the IBN raised the flags about, obviously, cuts. And again, we're in this financial right-siding and there's a lot of pieces that go to it. So my question tonight, you close both schools. Does that mean you're taking the $1.9 million in cuts off the table? Does that, the mic does not want me to talk tonight. I'm gonna say this again. The new information is 1.9 million. It's tied to the things that have been said. Cutting drama, cutting IB, cut. So, bottom up cuts. So if we get the two schools, as so recommended, are all of these off the table? We're not gonna cut any student programs. We're not gonna change the course catalog and lock anything out. We're going to get the two schools closed and move forward. Is that fair? Is that what you're saying?
Member Moore, yes, that is what the cabinet is saying. Ultimately, we made our recommendation to get to the number that would make us financially solvent and put us in a good spot. That number is the number, so without closing a school, needing to cut the approximately 1.9 million, yes, closing both schools does take those cuts off the table for the 25-26 school year.
So it takes it off of the 25-26 school year, and I'm assuming that what could bring it back to is depending on how we land on enrollment, is that correct?
Member Moore, every year we look at programming, so yes, if you're asking Does this prevent the cuts for the coming school year? Yes, those go off the table. We believe right-sizing, getting the district in a fiscally responsible position then puts us in a better scenario moving forward. But there's not a year that goes by that we're not looking and examining at all programming, all needs based on student count and student interest at all levels.
Which is my follow-up question. You're going to hire a consulting firm to look at our programs and find efficiencies, so does that put anything on the chopping block?
Member Moore, are you talking about for this coming year? Again, 25, 26, no. We are looking at companies that we would bring to you all in terms of looking at all programming efficiencies, all of that, to recommend and make recommendations to us to move forward to increase our financial position.
So again, we could possibly be cutting class programs. That is a possibility.
It is a possibility every single school year. So yes, we will constantly examine where we are fiscally and financially with our programming. That will never change. We do that every single year.
Correct.
The data, oh, sorry. Is it on? Okay. So we keep hearing about the focus group and Mr. Courtney gave a good dialogue on that they all came back, you know, with ABCD schools. Were they presented with the same data that we've been presented with, the same numbers? And did their numbers shift like ours did over the course of 2 months? So when they made those initial recommendations, what financial figures were they making those recommendations off of? The same ones that we were presented with February 11th or earlier?
Vice President Ulmer, the focus group was presented with the data that was in the first presentation on December 3rd. That was the data that was shared with them, where they came in and made a recommendation that those two schools put us in the best position. We shared that data on December 3rd, so we gave the exact same information that they received in order to form their decision. Since then, once we had students placed where they were going to go and we could model, what that modeling showed us is just how inefficient running 5 schools is at 47%, and the staffing savings that could be realized by closing both schools. That was the change. That modeling was not done with the focus group before that. I'm only hypothesizing because that was their decision based on the data that they had at that point in time. That additional savings would have increased. Again, hypothesizing, that would have given them even more impetus to make the recommendations that they made.
How is our current budget reserve, limit reserve being used? We had a slide 13. How are we currently using that budget limit reserve?
Vice President Ulmer, are you talking about carry forward or?
Yes.
Right now, our goal would be to have 3 months of operating expenses in carry forward. I believe now we're under 2 months of operating expenses in our carry forward. So similar to a savings account, that is the money that we keep aside, potentially for emergencies, potentially for scenarios like this year where our revenue control limit is less than what we're spending. So anything that we go over in terms of that revenue control limit, we do need to make up that shortfall. Again, one of the ways that we've made up that shortfall is consistently moving $2 million from DAA or capital into M&O. But how that would be used currently right now would be to cover any shortfall. Because unlike other places, we cannot live in a deficit. We cannot run debt. We have to have a balanced budget every year, so that carry forward helps balance. So in years when we've been able to save, during the COVID years with ESSER money and things like that, that we've been able to transfer funds into. We've been able to save some money, so that's where we are right now. Again, the plan for next year, if we're spending about $850,000 in DAA, in capital account, by not moving all of that over, we'd actually start to increase that and increase our carry forward. So right now, it's our savings account for emergencies and to help with operating expenses.
I'm just gonna make a couple of comments here at this point. A lot of data has been shared, and first of all, I wanna reiterate my appreciation and respect for the cabinet, the superintendent, and the entire board, whatever happens. You know, we hear a lot about teamwork and togetherness. In fact, together is one of our key phrases, and that's not about agreeing on everything. These are tough choices, and I'm gonna just speak for myself in voting no on closing Lone Mountain the last time wasn't about having my head in the sand or not paying attention to the data or not listening, and it wasn't about not realizing the financial situation that we're in or the need to close 2 schools. It was more about the rush, the lack of transparency, and all of the shifting numbers. And I'm not here to be a people pleaser. I'm not here to rubber stamp anything. I'm here to listen to everybody, which I feel like I did a lot, countless hours, even though it's been pointed out to me that I clearly wasn't listening, wasn't putting any time into the data or any of that. And that's just simply not true. And so, you know, a lot of things were being asked for. I had never heard that all 3 or all 5 schools were laid out, A, B, C, D, E, and nobody knew the names of them and voted. I asked last year if it would be possible to sit in as a board member on certain meetings, and I was immediately shut down. And I've had countless hours of discussions with Zach and James Kai and Zane McQueen and James Kai, and I really appreciate their leadership and everything that they brought to the table in terms of receipts and data, because it was stated very clearly at the Lone Mountain Forum, the cabinet is not the one that makes the decision to close the schools, it's the board. And that was a wake-up call to me that I better pay attention and take my job seriously. So I spent a lot of time listening and looking at data, you know, to the point of being sleepless, as many other people were. And I saw a lot of these questions go unanswered or kind of get answered and then come back to meetings and be shifted. And that's what's made it so difficult, because like I said, I don't want to rubber stamp something. I don't want to keep pushing something along because it seems like the easy thing to do. I know we have to close 2 schools, all of us do. None of us are immune to that. It's just making sure that we do it correctly, that we're weighing in all the data, that we realize that, you know, I understand that each year we have to continue to evaluate the budget and everything that goes into that. And so we don't know beyond this next school year that it's going to be a solution. I feel like, honestly, the last 2 weeks has probably been, like many of you has said, as detrimental as possible to the district in terms of the unprofessionalism that was shown by a small but mighty group of our employees, sadly, who were bullying students and parents and a lot of that kind of stuff, and created this whole rumor mill that got back to everybody. And that's really unfortunate, because I think that's, again, just perpetuated the distrust and a lot of the things that have gone on. I want to acknowledge those of you who really did bring data and receipts and were critical thinkers and taught a lot of us to think beyond just, here's this, trust us, do that. I fully respect our entire cabinet and the work that they put into it. And so it was never about throwing them under the bus or not being willing to look at the data that they were presenting. It was basically saying, we might be moving too fast on this. And as someone pointed out, once you close a school, you can't reopen it. So it, you know, it really was about asking good logical questions and trying to get the answers. And I gotta be honest, I still feel like I'm lacking some of those answers to the questions. So I'm just gonna close with that. We'll see what other commentary we have. But I appreciate everybody's attention.
I have a quick question. The one, let's call it the 1,224, was it 1,279.46? That's true surplus. That's not where we no longer eat into carryover, correct? And then we give teachers a 1% raise. That would be in carryover. use carry forward, correct?
Yes, we would use carry forward for the teachers.
And the budgeted 15% enrollment loss across DSA and Lone Mountain is 58, and that's based on 1st through 5th, correct?
If you're looking at 1st through 5th, yes.
Yeah, correct. And then at a district-wide level, what becomes a little bit of a danger to obviously maintaining what you're trying to accomplish here?
Again, I'm going to go back to the last presentation during the last board meeting that Mr. Dolezal did present, and there was the chart of the options, and as you go down the options, I think I gave you a formula that was pretty easily plug and play on that one. So even if you go down to the bottom where we had the 15% loss, the 25% loss at Lone Mountain, additional 10% at Sonoran Trails, and we look at that revenue control limit, again, that you heard of tonight. That revenue control limit would mean it would be approximately a $230,000 shortfall that would have to cover from carry forward, and that would be it. So even in that scenario, we're looking at a very minimal shortfall to cover with the carry forward that we have. And again, looking at that, that's, again, as we go through this and we actually realize some of the savings in the expenses that we have, it could be greater than, again, what we're projecting. So you're looking, again, in that scenario, if you go down that chart, you can easily go to the board docs for that.
Well, I'd live there. Again, I think this is the interesting part of the whole scenario, and I'll end with this is, everybody spent countless time. They take this very serious. And when you look at these numbers and you look at how we're getting things, for example, I just got on 2/19, which was last Wednesday or this Wednesday, the 1.9 million in cuts. And then on Friday, I got what the deeds and so on could be. So again, the timing of information, the level it takes to ask the questions. My no isn't that we don't need to take action. My no is it just seems like there's a lot of missteps, and from my perspective, it's one of those things of if you go up in front of a board and you don't present a clear crystal picture and lay it all out, because they ultimately have to make the decision. Trusting the information, trusting just to trust, you gotta trust but verify. And the verifying here is where I'm having the biggest challenge, because it's not concise. Because we keep kind of moving around as we ask questions, more information surfaces instead of it just being presented. So, I think the focus group is getting knocks. It's like, no, they were given information. They operated on the information that they were given. The report back was based on that information. Now we're getting new information. You're finding new information because you're digging and questions are happening, so it's digging. It really is just about catching our breath and slowing it down and going, can you execute? I've heard the teachers. I hear you loud and clear. You said it during the calendar vote. We're overworked, we're tired, we're exhausted. So how am I supposed to sit here and say, yes, let's close 2 schools. Let's move 6th grade to middle school. Let's go down this special ed track. And all of you get to carry that burden, because you can execute that. I know you have a plan. I know some people said, oh, they don't have a plan. I know you guys have some plans. But the reality to it is can you execute it all in one single year? That's a big load. And my concern is we get that wrong, there's no levers to pull back. We're just going to continue to cut. And it's going to be, sooner or later, you hit an artery, because we like using limbs and other analogies. So that is my biggest concern. With that, I'll end my rant.
I have one more. I have just one more comment, and that is, one of the parents said to me how much power the school board has, and it really settled on me that it's a dangerous amount of power when you really don't have all the facts, and when the facts keep changing. And it's a unique situation to be in, and I had never really thought about it like that, because in some ways it feels like we sort of have power, but we don't. We get all the information kind of crammed together, we have a short time to go through it, and then we vote on things. And I've learned a lot through this whole process, more and more of what to keep opening up, but I hope everybody really does keep that in mind. It's a dangerous amount of power when you're only given information in small chunks, and when it keeps changing, and you're vested with making decisions, that everybody's looking at you, especially when you're the last one to vote, and judging you on all of that. It's very, very difficult, and I think that it's important going forward, no matter what, that the board have more ability to have transparency, to understand better what it is that we're being presented with and what we're voting on, so that we don't keep coming back to these situations.
Dr. Pletnick, could you concisely kind of walk through how we as the board were given the financial information? Because I keep hearing, oh, numbers changed, and I don't think that's accurate.
Okay, so I'm going to actually walk you back a little bit. That predates me and goes to Ms. Rodriguez and actually IBN in February of 2024. If you look at the board docs in February of 2024 and February 13th and 27th, you'll see two presentations. And on both of those presentations mirror what we've kind of been saying all along. And if you look at the IBN, it was recommended that a focus group be put together for the four-day work week or four-day calendar, as well as looking at potential school closures. On that February 27th meeting, Ms. Rodriguez presented data regarding our fiscal year 25 shortfall. So if you, and I brought it up in front of me, slide 4, she detailed the budget versus expenditures. And when she did that, she used the M&O budget of about $30 million, moving $2 million over to capital, for about a $32 million M&O budget. And our expenditures at the time were nearly $35 million. And if you remember back into last year, Ms. Rodriguez spoke about cutting $2.5 million. So that $2.5 million was cut off of that $35 million to reach that $32 million mark. So at that point, projecting in February is much different. Even if you look at her budget that she put together in June, you could see, the number with the ADM based upon enrollment as we went on was dropping. But again, you saw $2.5 million being cut to try to get in line with the $32 million in M&O for Ms. Rodriguez. If you look at, Mr. Kai actually spoke to it where he said $28.7 million, which again, if you just take that number and use that number, $28.7 million, take the $2 million over, that's only $30 million. So even with a $32 million budget that was presented by Ms. Rodriguez, our actual state funding right now being at $30 million, puts us again in that nearly, $1.9 million, or $2 million, $2 million to $2.6 million deficit. So if you look at Ms. Rodriguez's numbers back in February that were presented to you, it was there. And especially if you watched the financial presentations as the year went on and you saw the decrease in ADM funding, it would show that decrease in ADM funding and why it was so important to cut that $2.5 million. So let's fast forward and again, midway through kind of the focus group process, coming in and looking at the budget she set and presenting to the focus group, we wanted to ensure when the numbers came, we used fiscal year 24 data for the expenditures. At that time, we would use what funding for ADM we had to see, again, as it was presented, to see would it be even beneficial closing any schools based upon our expenditures and what projected savings would be. The difficult part, presenting numbers in August when school just begins, trying to project numbers all the way to the next school year is difficult. So using other school districts, such as PV, going estimated savings at each one of those function levels that I spoke about, like instruction and administration, and what projected potential savings could be. That is how those focus group numbers came about. And again, we just took the ADM at the time of that focus group, and we took a 12.5% loss on those. Now, when we're looking at those in the focus groups, again, as you said, with the blind A, B, C, D, E, it gives us kind of a picture of where those schools without names were. And throughout the focus group process, any kind of information that the focus group requested, that is what Dr. Hendrickson and I would gather. What else do you need to make this? You know, we had the baseline information that was given to them, but then they were able to request any additional information. So you're saying on the 12-3 presentation, you saw just the information, just parts of the information that the focus group used. Because again, remember, we had a consulting firm, FMG, come in. Our demographer actually came in as well. So there was a large amount of data, and if you ask anybody in the focus group, their tables were pretty full at that point. Now, once we moved ahead, and it was approved in December, to move forward with the forums, then it became the digging deeper, and especially with the reboundaries, where we can sit there and go, okay, if X amount of students go to this school, if X amount of students go to this school, then let's run these scenarios on how much staff is going to be saved. You know, how much saving in staff, what are the efficiencies we're going to meet? And that's where you see, as we progress through this, that's where you're seeing these numbers progress as we had more information, as Dr. Hendrickson was able to get more specific information. So we had the estimated values, and we got more specific. And if you remember back at the work study sessions, those charts were actually presented to you. I believe it was during the first work study session. So again, if you're confused, I always welcome you into my office to have a sit down and come talk to me. Because I think there is some information out there. If you pick and choose certain information, you can make it look very different and make it look very confusing. And I think at times that happened. Again, I'm very happy that our community has dug into the numbers, but also I think it's created some confusion on some of the numbers, because talking to community members versus what we're saying and presented in a different manner can create confusion. But so looking forward, that's kind of how the numbers were presented, and again, going back to Ms. Rodriguez and her budgets.
Thank you. Okay, I'm now going to call for the vote, and it's going to be a roll call vote. I will start, and then you can go next after the vote, okay? Okay. All right, so you don't have to be last this time. Before I vote, I do want to say a few things. The discussion on school closures began solely because the district must find a way to balance the budget. During the board meeting on February 27, 2024, as Dr. Pletnick already identified, Mrs. Rodriguez, who was the CFO at the time, estimated that the budget cut would be about $2.5 million. Her financial presentation also included the following summary points. Moving funds and reducing staff are all short-term fixes. The need to commit to developing long-term solutions and a reiteration of the district's commitment to fiscal responsibility and the enhancement of educational excellence. At that February 27, 2024 meeting, the presentation to the board indicated that a facilities utilization focus group would be formed to explore facility efficiencies. The committee represented a broad cross-section of our community, including administrators, teachers, principals, facility and transportation directors, parents, and other local community members, including various accomplished business professionals such as demographers and facility, capacity, and building value professionals. They were tasked with a deep dive into looking at facility usage and efficiency, followed by making their informed recommendations. I'm confident that the process has been thorough, unbiased, and transparent. I'm also confident that the administration has been highly accommodating with additional requests for data and information, even in cases where requested information wasn't relevant to solving the immediate budgetary challenges. I want to extend a special thank you to the administration, Mr. Dolezal, Dr. Spletnik, Hendrickson, and Jensen for their accessibility, for tirelessly answering the board's many, many questions. These discussions have ignited and energized the community in many ways. Much of it has been very positive. Of course, closing a school is a complex strategic decision. While it naturally elicits emotional responses, it is essential to proceed objectively to ensure the district's financial stability while continuing to provide exceptional learning opportunities for our students. We have received community input with various suggestions for alleviating the district's financial challenges. Some of that input may be valid, however, none addresses the immediate need for a balanced budget. Rest assured, though, that any viable ideas involving operational improvements that will help maintain a balanced budget moving forward will be seriously considered for implementation. If past stakeholders' decision-making had shortcomings or even gross oversights, this has no bearing on our purpose tonight. Today, we have a budget shortfall and some options to address it. One, we can take the recommendation from the committee, superintendent, and administration and close Lone Mountain. Or two, we keep Lone Mountain open, use carry forward funds to close the budget shortfall. This option will result in depleting our reserves to half a month's operating expenses, which are there for unplanned costs, such as replacing a chiller, for example, reducing staff, which includes counselors, teachers, and support positions, increasing class size, and reducing programs offered. These are all actions that every school in the district would feel. The latter option of keeping Lone Mountain open does not support CCUSD's mission of putting kids first, because a depleted reserve will leave us less room to navigate with diminishing options resulting in even more cuts. And fewer teachers and larger class sizes will not positively enhance the students' learning environment and will tax our teachers even further. In short, we don't have the luxury of delaying a difficult decision without adversely impacting our students and our school community. The governing board adopted 7 operating norms last September to guide our decision-making process. It's already been mentioned, our first norm was, we will keep the students at the forefront of our decision-making process. Another one of the norms that was agreed upon, as board members, we acknowledge the board's role as a policy-making entity that trusts the role of district leaders. I feel compelled to remind you of these 2 operating norms now. Closing Lone Mountain puts us in the best possible position to maintain an outstanding learning experience for all our students as we move forward. I vote aye to close Lone Mountain.
No.
Well, once again, I'll just mention this real quick. There's a lot of ideas that are being talked about ways to do additional funds. Sounds great. Let's look at it. Creative thinking and outside the box thing, good deal, let's do it. We're gonna be meeting, again, tomorrow. And we'll be talking about several different things that we should be doing. And so I think, yes, we should do them, but now, this is what we have to do now, for the good of all the students here at this district. So I vote yes.
In the challenging landscape of educational funding, we have to make difficult decisions for the long-term sustainability of our school district. Consolidation of schools, while difficult, can lead to significant financial savings and allow for an expansion of programs that benefit all students. This is not an easy choice, as it involves disruption and change for students, families, and school staff. By reducing overhead costs associated with maintaining and operating multiple facilities, it's crucial to remember that the ultimate goal is to improve the quality of education for all students in our district. A smaller number of larger schools can provide greater opportunities for students to interact with a wider variety of peers, fostering diversity and inclusiveness. We can continue to offer cohesive programming from K through 12, which benefits students with diverse interests and talents. I implore all constituents to support all of those affected by these changes. Our community can foster growth, encourage learning, and be empathetic towards each other during this time of change. My hope is that this will place the district in a stronger financial position, enabling it to provide a richer and more varied, higher quality educational experience to all of its students. The proposed cuts that would need to happen to fit the $1.8 million deficit, I just can't see that work for the whole, so I vote yes.
Member Moore?
You know, the reality. Guess we better fund theater so we can get some new mics. Yeah, listen, the process, we've done it with the calendar, we've done it now. It's the sound decisioning of laying out a full, precise plan. It's what you do, it's leadership. We're following the PV playbook. You can look it up. They're currently doing the reimagining of what they're gonna do, repurposing. And then schools that are further ahead, they're just cutting at the admin level. So it's just this rotating thing. At the end of the day, yes, we have to put students at the forefront of the decisioning. But there's a decision maker we keep ignoring. And that's who puts those students in our school and what we offer them and what we do and how we move forward. Again, I'm not going to waver on my vote. It is no.
Motion passes. Okay. Item 4, adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, we are adjourned at 8:03.